Hi, everyone. It's Kali Persall, editor of Institutional Investing and Infrastructure. I'm here with two representatives from law firm Cooley today to talk about implications of data center and AI investments on the middle market. So thank you both for being here, Sonny and Rob. Can we just start off, Sonny, with a brief introduction of yourself before we kick off?
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. So my name's Sonny Allison. I co-chair the private equity practice at Cooley. Our private equity practice is a primarily middle market private equity practice, and that's sort of defined as largely sub $4 billion funds. Although we do work with a few of the larger ones, our primary focus is on those middle market funds, and they invest in a number of different areas. But we also do, or I do, a lot of work in the digital infrastructure, telecommunications, AI space.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Rob, let's go to you. Just a brief introduction of yourself and what you do at Cooley.
Sure, I'm Robert McDowell. I chair Cooley's global communications practice, and that involves anything regulated by the Federal Communications Commission, state public utility commissions, and their foreign counterparts abroad. I was a commissioner of the Federal Communications Commission for 7 years from 2006 to 2013, and have been in the telecom regulatory space and legal space for about 35 years. And our practice group covers the gamut of companies, everything from space tech and telecom and broadcasting to data centers and hyperscalers.
Well, fantastic. It's great to have you both discussing this from different angles today. Sunny, I'm just going to go to you first. As you know, AI infrastructure is attracting more investment as this focus on digitalization grows. So, how are you seeing middle market firms approaching these investments compared with, say, the larger investment firms?
Sure. So I'm sure everybody's seen the announcements in the news, probably the most prominent being of Project Stargate, which is proposed $500 billion investment into AI infrastructure. SoftBank, together with OpenAI, have sort of spearheaded that with plans to invest $100 billion off the bat. With further investments coming, that's obviously a lot of capital that's being required to build these things. So while the very large mega funds, while the large strategics like Microsoft and Amazon have the capital to build these things, sovereign wealth funds have the capital to build these things, the smaller middle market funds don't have that much capital available to them to invest in these large scale projects. Further, the return profile on the equity is slightly different for those larger projects versus what these smaller funds are typically looking for the return on equity. So they're generally looking for ancillary companies that will allow them to be exposed to the space. Maybe they're enabling, maybe they have an ancillary piece of the construction that will allow them to get exposed, but through an adjacent avenue.
Thank you so much. And then, Rob, given your regulatory background, same question. How are middle market firms approaching these investments compared with the larger investment firms?
Right, as Sunny pointed out, there's an incredible amount of investment capital going into this space. Generally, it actually involves a lot of different players, everything from real estate to equipment, telecom services, software. There are a lot of components actually to this, so it's going to be a large rising tide that floats a lot of boats. Energy is going to be involved as well. But the part that Sonny touched on is you're going to see a lot of foreign investment in the United States, and that's going to trigger lots of regulatory approvals. And I just flagged a few of those with that description of all the different piece parts that'll be involved. But the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS, is going to look at a lot of these structures and endeavors being built, data centers and such, as critical infrastructure, because they are, and to see what kind of foreign investment is happening and whether or not it meets the regulatory threshold. Any deal will have to be scrubbed early on, long before it actually becomes a reality, to make sure that it's regulatorily compliant. There's also a telecom aspect to this, which telecommunications providers can be licensed, either regulated or unregulated, depending on the services they're offering for the data that's being transported to and from data centers and things of that nature. So it kind of depends on whether or not they'll be regulated, whether or not you need regulatory approvals for those. But that's a whole nother aspect of it that folks looking to make deals need to think of ahead of time as much as possible.
Thank you very much. So what types of opportunities are middle market firms seeking, and what impact can these kinds of investments have on the middle market as a whole? We'll go back to you, Sonny.
Sure. So as I mentioned, they are looking for adjacent businesses that maybe support or maybe are required, but a piece of things that are smaller than the large scale, large capital investment businesses. So as an example, as Rob mentioned, energy is a huge piece of this. Again, I'm sure people have seen in the news Microsoft making large deals for nuclear power because it requires so much to power these large data centers. In some jurisdictions, it's taking 5 to 7 years in order to be able to get the connectivity they need and the power that they need. And so, like, there are companies that develop and build microgrids that sort of work behind the meter and allow quicker and faster kind of speed to power for these large data centers. So that's an example of a company that is very important, can add a lot of value. It's going to not require the amount of capital. Is going to be critically important to supporting the build out of these large data centers. Another might be power backup systems. Anything that helps to support these things, whether it's on the design build side of things or it's a piece of the infrastructure that's required. They're just looking for ways to be involved, be exposed to the space, but without requiring hundreds of billions of dollars worth of capital deployment.
Thank you. Rob, what are you seeing in regards to this? Opportunities middle market firms are seeking and the impact on the middle market as a whole?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a very active time. And so what we don't know is exactly how all this evolves for transactions of a variety of sizes, both middle market and large, and maybe even smaller than that. And of course, as I alluded to earlier, all of the spin-off aspects of this. So there's going to be tremendous opportunity at all levels, kind of regardless of fund size or of the target acquisition size, et cetera. So it's going to be an exciting time, but we don't know exactly how it will unfold. It's definitely a boom period, and those tend to define themselves as they evolve. So it's exciting to be at the early stage of this.
Yeah, and one thing I will add is our clients have to some degree seen this movie before. It's not dissimilar to some of the large scale renewable energy projects that were hot investments for a period of time. They very quickly became projects that required very large capital deployments and had return profiles that were generally not what these more middle market funds were looking for. So again, they looked for adjacent businesses to be exposed, but not have to deploy that amount of capital and to be able to get the returns that they were looking for. So it's not dissimilar. We have clients that have done all of this before, and so it'll just be a similar issue where these middle market funds are looking for ways to gain exposure. And there are lots of businesses. These are very complicated, very complex systems that are required to support all of the infrastructure, all of the background. And so there will be a lot of opportunities. They're just looking for those smaller scale, lower capital requirement deployments.
And if I could add to that too a little bit, there's a little bit of risk for folks, maybe a lot of risk. So we have supply chain issues. We have executive orders affecting supply chains. Also, as these things are built out, there will be data, there's security issues, privacy issues, all of that. There are different bodies of law for all of the above. And that's something to think through before you get going and before it's too late.
Yeah, very interesting things to watch out for and good advice there. So just what types of assessments are companies making when looking to invest and build in the space?
One of the biggest issues is does this fit our return profile? Infrastructure assets often have a different return profile than other types of assets, and larger infrastructure funds will typically have a different return profile requirement than smaller infrastructure funds, where they're looking for a higher return on their equity. And so much of what they're looking for are businesses that will support their model and support what their LPs are expecting. It's complicated by the fact that there are such large strategics that have capital to deploy, the Microsofts, the Amazons, who have billions and billions of capital that they can put toward this. And so they have to be looking for businesses where it makes sense for them, where they don't have to deploy those hundreds of billions of dollars worth of capital, and can get a return on their equity that supports what their fund is structured to do.
Sure, thank you. And Rob, do you have anything to add on that? Any thoughts?
No, that's terrific. The LPs, the limited partnerships, that could be some interesting bespoke LPs that are created as a result of all this, of this massive set of opportunities with so many different facets to it. So folks should be thinking about that as well.
Well, thank you both so much. Lots of helpful information here. Before we wrap up, is there any sort of takeaway that you want to sort of leave the audience with? I know you guys covered a lot of things, but just wanted to open that up to you.
Yeah, I would just echo what Rob said earlier about, it remains to be seen how this all unfolds and how this plays out. There's a lot of uncertainty between regulatory issues, tariff issues, supply chain issues, costs, who decides to deploy capital, who doesn't, what foreign investors want to come in, who don't. So I think it's an exciting time, but there is a lot to unfold here, and it'll be exciting to be a part of that, and as it develops.
I would just recommend try to be patient, try to be flexible, try to think ahead as much as you can, but also be prepared for the unexpected, and put on your seatbelt.